welcome to Ambassador in Town. This time, we are very fortunate to have Ambassador Ovidiu Dranga of Romania. We will discuss on issues relating to Romania and the war in Ukraine, as well as NATO or international affairs as whole. Welcome to Ambassador in Town.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm really honored.
First, I'd like to ask you about your impression about Japan. Having served in Japan since August 2021, what is your impression about Japan from a point of view of an Atlanticist who knows a lot about NATO? You have been working very hard in relations to NATO, right?
Well, let me first thank you very much for inviting me to such a prestigious program. I'm really honored. Well, and coming back to your question, I'm impressed by Japan and by Japanese policy in the area of security, especially now when the international community is confronted with some challenges, I would say geopolitical challenges, that have highlighted the importance of solidarity of like-minded countries, countries that support their rules-based international order. Because you mentioned my, let's say, Atlanticist background, I would like to tell you that I'm very much impressed by the commitment of the Japanese government and the Japanese society as a whole to strengthening cooperation between Japan and NATO. And more, maybe in a broader perspective between the European Union and NATO, the transatlantic community and Japan as a whole, because actually what we are now facing is a challenge to the entire, let's say, Western community. Unprovoked and brutal aggression of Russia against Ukraine is actually a challenge to the international community, especially to those countries who love liberty, who love democracy, and who love, how shall I say, common values that bring us together. And from this perspective, one of the most important ideas is that Prime Minister Kishida expressed his support for a new approach to security. That is, security of the Indo-Pacific is directly linked with security of the transatlantic community, the Euro-Atlantic community, I would say, and that's been, I would say, followed by very credible actions of the Japanese government in the area of security and defense. And this new legislative package, very ambitious and very comprehensive, is a sign that now Japan is taking seriously to assume more responsibilities in the area of security and defense. And I think the Japanese government and the Japanese society have come to this conclusion that economic power is not enough when it is about a contribution, a meaningful contribution to, let's say, restoring the world order. And I think this is something that should be welcomed by Europe, by NATO. And I think we are moving in the right direction. Prime Minister Kishida attended for the very first time a NATO summit last year, the NATO summit in Madrid, and I think if invited, he will attend the next NATO summit in Vilnius this year. That's sending a message that Japan is working hard and meaningfully towards strengthening cooperation between Japan and NATO in this spirit of solidarity and unity of this, I would say, Western community of values and principles. And this is actually also, it also has, I would say, a kind of a deterrence value. It is actually a sign that Japan, together with other countries, like-minded countries in Europe and NATO, actually they are against any attempt to change the status quo by force. And this is actually a sign, a signal that should be very well understood by the international community.
Thank you very much. I think that you played a very important role in bringing your country into NATO. And this time, as ambassador to Japan, I suppose that you are now tying Japan with NATO.
Well, I would not get into details, but to tell you very, how shall I say, very directly, is I'm doing my best from this perspective, and because I truly believe there is a strong reason to do that. NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg visited Japan only a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he had very good meetings with his Japanese counterparts, including, of course, especially Prime Minister Kishida and other interlocutors, and Minister Hayashi. And he had a fantastic interaction with students, with the civil society in Japan. And the message was very clear. We should stay together. We should support Ukraine. Because actually, how shall I say, supporting Ukraine is actually a contribution to our own security. Ukraine prevails, we are prevailing in this confrontation with tyranny, in this confrontation with those who are actually disregarding the international order based on rules, and those who are, as I mentioned, trying to change the status quo by force, which is unacceptable.
Right. Let me then ask you on the question of a war in Ukraine, because Japan is a frontline state in a confrontation between the United States and China and the United States and Russia. And Romania is also located as a frontline state between NATO and, of course, Russia. So Romania is a neighbor to Ukraine as well, and is also very close to Crimea. Besides, the Bucharest summit of 2008 is often regarded as a turning point in the relationship between NATO and Ukraine, or the NATO and Russia. How is the current Russian invasion to Ukraine affects Romanian relations with Russia as well as with Ukraine? Or how do you see the current war in Ukraine?
I think the key word in order to define, how shall I say, our attitude is solidarity.
Okay.
And also commitment to provide the necessary means to Ukraine to resist aggression and to prevail. Of course, it's difficult, but we have to support Ukraine, and we have to do whatever it takes, I would say, for how long it takes to make it happen, in the sense that Ukraine is actually, once again, central to our attitude and our policy regarding, I would say, those who challenge, as I mentioned, the international order. That being said, a lot of things happened. We have been coherent with the international, the Western community, so to speak, but not only. We have been coherent, and we have shown, how shall I say, a lot of political determination to do that. Sanctions, I think one of the most comprehensive sanctions package has been approved recently by the European Union. Japan has adopted a very significant sanctions package against Russia, and that has been, how shall I say, very well regarded in Europe. That is actually a sign that we are united on this, in this regard, and we not only united, we are actually taking risks. We have decided to take the risk and to assume the responsibility to do something concrete in supporting Ukraine in this war against, in protecting their territory and their resistance against Russian aggression. The relationship between NATO and Ukraine, things are going in the right direction, as much as the relationship between the European Union and the Ukraine are going in the right direction, because Ukraine, as together with the Republic of Moldova, have been granted the status of, potential partners of the European Union. That would actually mean a lot of support, financial support, and other forms of support for the Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova. And that's also important for the strategic landscape. It means that we are putting some resources behind our words. We are doing something tangible, and we will continue to do that as long as it takes, because it's very simple. There is an aggressor and there is a victim. And I think it's obvious what we have to do in the future.
Well, thank you very much. It's really important for us to know about how you think about it, because Romanians know a lot about Russia. Romanians know a lot of Crimea and Ukraine as well. And also, of course, Romania is a member state of the NATO. So that's why I think that Romania can play a very important role in how to react to the war, how to reconstruct the country of Ukraine after the war.
Yeah, giving the status of candidate to Ukraine, EU candidate to Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova is a huge step forward in the right direction. It means that we have accepted them as part of our family. Secondly, we have understood what it is really important now. It's not only, let's say, providing them with weapons and ammunition, it's providing them with the perspective, the political perspective that they are actually they are welcome in this family, and probably at a certain moment, given the circumstances, and once they comply with some requirements, they will become members. That's actually the perspective that has been granted once they have been given this candidate status. But you mentioned frontline states. Yes, Japan is a frontline state. Romania is a frontline state, but Romania has, and that's why Romania and Japan share, I would say, a number of common geopolitical sensitivities and imperatives. Romania has done, together with Poland, some very practical, how shall I say, measures, has undertaken some concrete steps, and we have been behind this initiative called Bucharest Format, or B9. Recently, probably you know, this format held a summit in Warsaw, attended by President Biden and NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg. I would say that was very important, also because in the margins of that summit, the President of the Republic of Moldova attended a meeting with President Biden and other heads of state in the region. So that also is sending a strong message of solidarity, of continuity in our approach towards our eastern neighborhood. And once again, it provides a moral boost, a moral support for the population in both the Ukraine and the Republic of Moldova, that they are not forgotten, they are not alone. And signals coming from Japan are equally important and equally encouraging, since Japan has provided a lot of support for Ukrainian refugees. I had the honor to participate at the ceremony here in Japan. Japanese self-defense forces sent supplies for the Ukrainian refugees in Romania with using a military plane. And that was actually, how shall I say, meaningful solidarity. And that has been hugely appreciated in Bucharest. And thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you very much. I think this is an important point. And also this is important point for the G7 summit in Hiroshima as well, because I think one of the most important agenda would be how to keep the solidarity, how to sustain the solidarity among like-minded partners in supporting Ukraine. So in the sense, I think what you said is important. So let me move on to the third question. What do you expect Japan the most as a host of the G7 summit meeting Hiroshima in May this year?
I think the expectations are very high in Europe and in the world, because the G7 summit will indicate what members of this format perceive as priorities, and how much they are committed to continue to support Ukraine and to support, I would say, in more general terms, the fight in the name of values. I think one of the highest expectation is that the G7 summit will send this signal of, or will confirm, will strengthen this message of unity of the Western world in facing these geopolitical challenges. Because it's not only, once again, about the war in Ukraine, it's actually about managing the geopolitical challenges that are supposed to come. It's not only the situation in the Ukraine, it is about, approaching a broader approach, a broader, how should I say, understanding of security. It is about economic security as well. And I would say that this is one of the expectations countries in Europe have, and also the United States have, because economic security has come as a priority for the Japanese government. I would say that there is already a kind of Japanese model on economic security, security of supply chains, resilience of value chains, stronger cooperation in order to establish and enforce norms and rules in this respect. And that's something achievable for this G7 summit in Hiroshima. Since, once again, Japan has been promoting this idea quite successfully already internally, but also in its cooperation and dialogue with both the European Union and the United States. So I think this is my personal how should I say, view that there is a need for a triangular cooperation between Japan, the United States, and the European Union. And why not a signal in this direction could be also, how should I say, at least addressed during the summit or before the summit somehow, in order to signal the importance of the subject for all those participants.
Well, it's very encouraging. You are European, but at the same time, you are Atlanticist, knowing the United States very well in relation to NATO, of course, and also you know Japan. So you, as a diplomat, know all of the three parts of the world.
I have this privilege. To be quite knowledgeable on Euro-Atlantic cooperation and US-Europe relationship, bilateral with member countries, also in the framework of NATO. What I think is important to highlight at this moment is that we need to be to have a kind of intellectual and conceptual interoperability. Yeah. Among those like-minded partners I mentioned, in order to strengthen, I would say, strategic positive interdependence that actually probably is the key for our success in preserving our strategic relevance in the years to come. G7 countries, I think they produce almost half of the global GDP. Probably this is important in terms of the political signal that the summit in Hiroshima will send to the world. That's why, once again, coming to your question, I think G7 Hiroshima summit could be a game changer.
I also like your wording of intellectual interoperability.
Well,
we need it.
No, we need a common understanding. We need a common understanding on security challenges, including challenges to our economic security. We need a common understanding on priorities. We need a common understanding on methods to cooperate in the future, to coordinate our endeavors in multilateral circumstances and fora. So there is a lot on the table in terms of bringing us even closer together, especially now when, once again, not only because of the war in Ukraine, but because of the changing geopolitical circumstances globally, we need to stick together.
Right, absolutely. So let me move on to the fourth question. In 2018, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe visited Romania for the first time as a Japanese Prime Minister and met with your president there. And then Prime Minister Chuka last year had a summit meeting with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida in September last year. How do you see these recent developments in Japan-Romania relations?
Well, I would say that relationship between Japan and Romania have never been better. And the perspective is even better. Because soon we will sign the strategic partnership between Romania and Japan. That's a game changer, I would say, as well, because it will open up new opportunities for cooperation, for better interaction, for stronger ties, trade, economic cooperation, but also people-to-people contacts, and why not security cooperation? Because these are some of the pillars of the strategic partnership. But the symbolic value of this partnership is even broader because it's actually sending a signal to Europe, to the international community, that Japan is rediscovering Central Europe. It's not only about strengthening cooperation with Romania, it's about rediscovering Central and Eastern Europe as an area of opportunities for Japanese companies. It actually guarantees, in the eyes of Japanese investors, that Romania is a good destination, for investment. Japan is already present on the Romanian markets, and let me stress the fact that in a matter of weeks, maybe, the third longest bridge in the European Union will be open in Romania. It's been constructed by IHI, a Japanese company. Soon we will start construction of one of the metro lines in Bucharest, which is going to be built with Japanese financial assistance. So, but it's about the future. It's about, for instance, strengthening cooperation between Romania and Japan on innovation. In June this year, we will host in Romania the first edition of the Romania-Japan Innovation Forum in Cluj. And of course, other things will be also considered from this perspective. Secondly, it is also important because, Japan needs partners, allies within the European Union and NATO. And of course, if we can help promoting, Japanese ideas, Japanese interests together with other countries, that would be fantastic. Because actually, as I mentioned, we are like-minded countries. We have common geopolitical sensitivities, and why not cooperating to strengthen relationship between NATO and Japan? And we can bring a contribution from this perspective. We can bring a direct contribution to this, let's say, broader objective of stronger cooperation between NATO and Japan, between the European Union and Japan, once we have this partnership signed and put into practice. So it's actually opening a new era in our bilateral cooperation. And I think it has a particular value in terms of confidence and trust and visibility. I think Romania will gain in terms of visibility and trust from a Japanese perspective. And probably that would go beyond the benefits of economic cooperation. It's actually an invitation to rediscover each other, to create new bonds that, of course, at the end of the day will have some positive, let's say, economic consequences. But it's more than that. It's about connecting people. It's about how shall I say, changing their perspective, their mutual perspective about the other country, and that would really, how shall I say, open up new avenues of mutual understanding, and once again, we will have the opportunity to know more about each other and get closer and closer in the years to come.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much. You mentioned many important points today. Particularly, I am moved by knowing that common understanding between us is more needed than before. And that common understanding would strengthen the solidarity among ourselves. And this would contribute to supporting Ukrainian effort to defend its own country. In that sense, I think it would be nice if our conversation can contribute to deepen our common understanding between ourselves.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. Once again, I'm really honored to be here and to make my humble contribution to a very productive and promising relationship between two countries who share already 100 years of bilateral relationship. We celebrated this last year and the year before. And of course, sharing, I would say, a very promising and, how shall I say, rewarding future in the years to come.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Well, this is the end of today's conversation, but we continue to invite ambassador in Tokyo. So please check our program regularly. But anyway, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。